Hey guys, it's Mr. Barclift here. Wanted to share something with you about music theory. So for 5th grade music now, we're going to be learning things like whole notes and half notes and other music theory facts that we need to know moving forward in music. So I'm going to be doing a little, I've got a PowerPoint. Usually in class, I would, go over this PowerPoint, we'd talk about it together, but those of you who are at home, unfortunately, we can't do that. So I've made a Screencastify that will go through the information with you. And so hopefully you'll kind of watch that. And then at the end, there will be a little Google form to fill out to see what you remember, and to hopefully give you some, a chance to review what you've learned. And but I hope you enjoyed the little video I've created for you, and I look forward to hopefully meeting all of you guys one day soon. Bye. And here we go. Music theory introduction review. That is called a staff. S-T-A-F-F. Look at that. There it is. So this is where we put our notes, and we figure out what notes they are. On this staff, we just happen to have something called a what? Does anybody know? Yes, it's a treble clef. And the treble clef has certain notes. So each line and each space is a different note. So like if there's a note on this line right here, it's an E. If there's a line on this space, it's an F. And look, G. So I bet you can guess what's next. H. No, there's no H in music. It's the letter A. So after you get to G, you start over again. And then A, B, C, D, E, F. So look, they're in order. We know our alphabet. But here's the thing. Sometimes when you're playing, you get confused and you forget which space and which line is what. So we have these cute little phrases. First off, you can look at the spaces there, F-A-C-E. We always start at the bottom going up if you haven't picked up on that yet. So you'll see that F-A-C-E is the spaces. So if you're ever trying to figure out what a note is and you say, oh my gosh, it's on that space. Okay, F-A-C, okay, there, it's a C. And you can figure out your notes from there. Now, there's also a way to remember the lines. I bet some of you have heard it before. Anybody want to tell us? And a lot of times we have different answers for this, but the one I use most is sort of the traditional one that's been around forever, is every good boy does fine. Yeah, that's the one many of us have probably heard before, so that's the way you remember the lines. So if you look and you're like, oh gosh, what is that second line from the bottom? You go, every good G, good. So that will hopefully help you remember those. Most instruments are treble clef, but some of you are bass clef. Very good. So that's the bass clef. And so this is going to be trombones and baritones and even our new tuba we're going to add in very soon. These are all the low instruments. So, but I think it's important for us to know these anyway. So even if you don't play a bass clef instrument, let's make sure we know them. So that bottom line there is a G. So we remember what comes next, right? H, no, A. And then look, you just go right up the alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and A again. So that's those. And same thing, they're in order. You just got to know where to start. So once again, we've got these cute little ways to remember. For the lines, you could say good boys do fine always, which is what some people do. I personally like this one. It's just a little different because I like fudge. Good boys deserve fudge always. So that's the lines on the bass clef. And then the spaces. This is one of my favorites. All cows eat grass. And just for fun, we have a picture of a cow. Aren't you excited about that? All right, so you might want to go back and review this if you're a trombone, baritone, tuba player, want to check these out. There we go. That's the bass clef. All right, the next thing we're going to learn about is our shapes. So that is a circle, right? Well, maybe. It's almost sort of an oval. In music, though, that circle is called a whole note. Raise your hand if you remember that. Hopefully you're raising your hand now. Whole note's just a circle. And then you have to know how many beats it is. So how many times you tap your foot when you're holding a whole note out. And the answer would be 4 beats. Okay, so that's a whole note, 4 beats. The next thing we're going to learn looks like that, but you got to make that noise. We add a stick to it. We add a line. We call that the stem, S-T-E-M, kind of like a flower. So the stem makes it a half note. Look at that. Isn't that nice? So that's a half note. So if it's a open circle, if it's a white circle with a stem, then it's called a half note, and it is 2 beats. Okay, if you remember that the whole note is 4 beats and this is half of that, that makes 2 beats. So there you go. The next thing we're going to do is it looks kind of like a half note, except bloop, we fill it in. I kind of like that. Wasn't that fun? So that's a quarter note. Okay, and 1/4 of the whole, which was 4, would be 1. If you're really good in math, you kind of figure that out. But a quarter note is 1 beat. So if you're tapping your foot, these get 1 beat. Okay. The next thing we're going to learn looks kind of like a quarter note, except we add a little flag to it. Now we also, if we have a bunch of these, we connect them with a beam across the top. I only made one for this video right here, but you might have seen them with 2 quarter notes that have a beam. They call it a line connecting them. That makes an 8th note. So that's an 8th note. Anybody know how many beats that one is? Half a beat. Very good. Okay, so you're going to want to memorize all of those. That's very, very important because that's like the basics of band. We've got to know this for reading music. So make sure you memorize that. We're going to move on to rests. Now this one here looks a lot like the one we're going to learn next. So this, I kind of think about the horizontal line going across there as the ground. And then the black area below that is like a hole in the ground. Ah, a hole in the ground. But look at that, it's called a whole rest. Of course, it's not H-O-L-E, it does have a W. But a whole rest, it's just like a whole note in that it gets, oops, hit the button, and 4 beats. There we go, so that's a whole rest. The next thing we're gonna learn about, there it is. Oh, it looks kind of like a top hat. Hello. It's like a hat. So since it looks like a hat, the word that sounds kind of like hat would be half. So that's how I remember those two. It helps me remember them. So a half rest is kind of like a half note, and it receives how many beats? Everyone shout it out in your bedrooms all together. 2 beats. Very good. Excellent. So that's what we have there. That's a half rest. And the next one we're going to learn, I bet you know the name of it, but it looks like that. When I draw it on the board, it looks just sort of like a squiggly line because I can't make it nearly that pretty. It's called a quarter rest. Very good. And a quarter rest, I bet you know, 1 beat. Excellent. Y'all are so smart. Oh my goodness. All right. The next one, it's kind of like that. It's a little weird looking thing. We call that an 8th rest. I bet you could guess that one as well. And an 8th rest, just like an 8th note, is half of a beat. Okay? So rests are just as important as the notes. We've got to make sure we know exactly how long they last. So make sure you memorize those as well.